I'm just a boy from Kansas out to save the world from chronic disease. And I truly mean that. Nobody is in control of your health but you. I can't heal you. Your doctor can't heal you. You have to heal you. And it's all about having the education and empowerment to know what you need to be changing within yourself, within your life, to set your soul free and accomplish that best life that we all like to talk about. And I truly believe that the greatest medicine of all is to teach people how not to need it. I'm Brendan Vermeyer, the original Holistic Savage. Welcome to the Holistic Savage podcast.
Like conventional versus functional. Why is it versus? Like,
right.
Aren't we all trying to like save the planet here? But then, you've got functional people that kind of demonize anything that's a prescription. If it's a synthetic drug or or bioidentical hormones, it's like, oh, nothing but natural. And it's like, okay, yeah. I'm a big fan of always looking at nature to guide our critical thinking, because like nature has been doing what nature does for millions of years. Our species has evolved for the past 200,000 years.
Right.
I think there's a lot to be learned by looking at the natural progression. However, boom, we have this amazing technology. You look at technology today versus 100 years ago versus like 1920 to 1820. All right, it didn't change that much from 1820 to 1920, but it sure as hell changed a lot from 1920 to 2020 or whatever we are right now. So my point being, though, I think we have to use the best. Like, let's use some good critical thinking, but why not make the most out of the technology available to us? And so right. I think HRT, it's almost like the pursuit of the superhuman, because yeah, maybe in the past we had to menopause, like that's just the natural way of life. And so it's like, well, just because it's natural doesn't mean we can't, work intelligently.
Optimize it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think the intelligent use of hormone replacement can be amazing. And a lot of times too, I get a lot of dudes that come to me like, yo, bro, low testosterone, man. Like, what do I do? And you can kind of chase that rabbit hole of like, well, it's probably because of these trillion reasons. So we have to run 100 tests. And it's like, at the same time, we've got to focus on like, this is a human that wants to increase their quality of life right now. And a lot of times too, if we can do something that's going to powerfully make them feel better, we're going to be able to increase the trajectory and momentum of whatever health building program they go into. I think a big part of it is like, if somebody wants to use hormones, great. That's where I always tell them, like, we need to use Dutch testing to really be monitoring the effectiveness of the HRT. Because I kind of picture it like, you've got this complex piping system that's all of your biochemical pathways, and you got that funnel at the top, and it's like you're going to dump a big bucket of water, but then the question becomes, how are those hormones being metabolized? And we can't tell this off serum, and that's where
or saliva for that matter.
Yeah, really shining is we can see the 5-alpha reductase activity or the 2,4,16-OH pathway.
Yep.
So there's going to be a mix of people listening to this thing, a lot of practitioners, a lot of trainers, a lot of just people. But I'd love to, before we then kind of move into like a little bit big picture holistic spirituality, the estrogen metabolism, and because I think that is one of the kind of focal points of the Dutch test. One of the most robust parts of it is, we've got these 3 primary estrogens. We have the 3 phase 1. I'd love to hear, the hormone queen speak to estrogen metabolism a little bit, like the 101 for dummies that, don't study this stuff for a living.
Aren't fully aware. Okay. So you have estrogen. This applies to men too. I get this question. Do men have the same metabolism pathways? 100%. Yep. You have estrogen. You have E2, estradiol, E1, estrone. They go through phase 1 detoxification. When you go through phase 1, you have 3 pathways you can choose from: your 2 pathway, your 4 pathway, and your 16 pathway. They become 2,4,16 hydroxy is what we call them. And so the 2 is less carcinogenic. It's not no carcinogenic. Everyone assumes it's healthy. It's not healthy. It's just less carcinogenic. The 4 has the potential to be much more carcinogenic. We definitely want to minimize the 4 pathway. The 16 pathway is what I call proliferative. It makes things grow. So it can increase your breast size at PMS. It can make your periods heavier. It can make fibroids and polyps grow, those kind of things. But it's also somewhat helpful for bone growth, bone health. So it, Goldilocks, right? We want just enough. So that's phase 1, 2, 4, and 16. They are known as reactive oxygen species. So for those of you who know much about detoxification, sometimes your body turns a chemical into a worse chemical before it turns it into a neutral chemical. This is one of those times. Your estrogen gets converted into something that's actually worse, and then it has to neutralize it. So phase 1, they make it worse, neutralizes it through phase 2. So once you go through phase 2, that's where you go through COMT, C-O-M-T, which is what we talked about earlier. The C-O-M-T, the MT stands for methyltransferase, and it gets a methyl group on the estrogen, and that basically neutralizes it, makes it water soluble. Now that you're water soluble, you're very safe, and you can get excreted out of the body. So you're a water soluble estrogen, you're in the cell, and you need to get either urinated out or pooped out. So your body takes a little transporter, transport you across the cell membrane, like you get in an Uber, and your Uber drives you across the membrane, and dumps you either into circulation or which gets you to the bile or gets you to the kidneys. That's phase 3 detoxification, out of the body. Once you're in the bile, in the intestines, and then you go out, because you're packaged to go out. You can have problems at phase 1. You can be a person who your phase 1 is really slow. You can be a person who goes down too much of the 4 pathway, too much of the 16 pathway. You can have a problem at phase 2. You don't put the methyl on your estrogen. You don't neutralize your estrogen very well. You could have a problem at phase 3. So you could have very slow Uber drivers. You could have problems with your bile. Maybe you're missing your gallbladder. Maybe you have constipation. Maybe you have a lot of gut issues. You have a parasite, bacteria, microbiome issues, candida, and that's screwing everything up. And so I teach it as phase 1, 2, 3. That's the order it goes in. But you address it 3, 2, 1. You have to be pooping and peeing regularly, and then you neutralize it, and then you work on phase 1. And so it goes back to the conversation we were talking earlier about DIM. Everyone jumps on DIM. That's just phase 1. Mm-hmm. If you have a phase 1 problem, great. If you don't, if your problem is at phase 2 or phase 3, then all you're doing is making your estrogen convert into a reactive oxygen species faster. You are increasing your carcinogenic risk higher. So you have to treat 3, 2, 1. Make sure you're focused on gut health first, then back up to the liver. Mm-hmm. So that's how you go through phase 1, 2, and 3.
I love
that. And the same applies to men.
Totally.
Yep.
Well,